Britain Reserve atop the Port Hills, and Lyndon is so eager to show me his new idea to start the show that he's made us all get out of bed far too early.
What do you reckon? The time? Is it? Can I do it? Can I?
Oh, okay then.
Good day. All right. The Otākaro, otherwise known as the Avon River, one of Christchurch's most important treasures, meanders its way right through town, into the estuary here, and then away into the Pacific Ocean and beyond. You know, Rach, there used to be a time when the fish were good enough to eat, when the water was clean enough to drink. It was an important resource for the local Māori and early settler traders.
Yeah, but it's not like that anymore, Lyndon. We know that the question that a lot of Cantabrians are asking is what's going to happen to all of the property that sits along the river and the people who live there. Jared, you've been there from the beginning. What do you think?
Well, there are so many different ideas, Rachel. So this week we're going to talk to people and see what they would like. We're going to talk to others and see how they were affected. And we're going to talk to the government about what they plan to do. That's all on Christchurch from the Streets.
Rach, must have a river running through Edinburgh.
Yeah, we do. It's called the Forth, and it runs into the Firth, and where they join is the Firth of Forth.
The Firth of the Forth. I was 12 years old, right? I spent the whole summer holidays, me and my best mate Warren, building a canoe in his shed. And eventually we tied it to the top of my dad's car, nearly crushed the car, brought it down here and launched it. And it floated and everything. But how we built it, it just went on this big curve. It could not hold a straight line. So I took it home, put it in the backyard. We never used it again.
You should stick to walking then.
Yeah, probably, eh?
Well, good morning, everyone. We're on pilgrimage today. It's an opportunity to connect, bring us together, give us hope and inspiration, renew us, restore us. And the river certainly does that with spades.
How many houses are likely to be abandoned from the Avon?
About 5,000 to 6,000. We're talking about 4.5 times the size of Hagley Park. We've always said from the beginning, our vision is for the whole residential red zone to be part of the Avon Otākaro River Park Reserve.
You're going to walk the whole way?
I am. Yeah, I'm 82 and yeah, I intend to go the whole way.
Wow, you're doing well. We'll keep watching. The government now owns this land, don't they?
Yes, and we are doing work that we hope shows a river park reserve with all the different components in it can all take place.
So why wouldn't the government just remediate the land and sell it for housing?
Because it's unsuitable for housing. It's all on a floodplain. It would be sheer madness. Bob here lives by the river just down there where we started, has lived there, brought his children up there. It's been such a huge part of their life. Bob's been telling me there used to be a hotel in here somewhere, but it's wisely been turned back to wetland, and so much more of this land around the river could be like that. It's performing ecological services for us. It's purifying the water. It's a buffer between the city and the river. My vision is a thriving, healthy river system, but the water quality is not good. I've tested the water in this river. The E. coli levels are high, so it's full of bacteria. It needs to be filtered by wetlands so that the water purity is a lot higher and biodiversity in the river is returned. We know there are a number of issues that need to be worked through and so on, but there just seems to be overwhelming support for it. This River Road area is my favourite spot. Just along there, the Medway footbridge used to be.
Oh, it's gone.
It got twisted,
Yeah.
sculpted by nature. The people who lived on either side of the river here are very keen to create a garden heritage type park in this area.
You said the best part of the day was sitting having a nap.
Oh, no, that might be halfway.
Were you just having a walk today?
Yes.
I don't have strong views, but I hope property developers don't go in there and, you know, it's got to be wild.
When we cross Fendalton Road, suddenly the river is privatised and we can only get down to the river in brief little bursts from here to the source. We're in Millbrook Reserve. A lot of people on the eastern side of the city don't know about this little reserve. It's exotics and natives, but I'd like to see lots of dense vegetation all along the river. Let's keep walking, folks.
What's the river looking like to you?
Peaceful.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's our treasure, eh?
it is. I like it. It's a nice river.
People, they appreciate the river in a different way if they've spent the day with it. It's such an essential part of our city. It looks very different to the east, doesn't it?
Without the river, we'd
Yeah.
just be a big paddock on the plains.
We
wouldn't
would be. I say that it's the spiritual heart of the city.
Really cold. Considering it's still summer.
Far to go?
An hour.
More than an hour.
Oh.
3 hours.
No, not that long.
No, and the pace is quite fast too. You men get out the front and goodness, we've got to run to keep up.
We're just about to go onto the private property that is the official historic source of the Avon. We're here. The source of the Avon. We've arrived.
And how old are you?
82.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And you made it all the way.
Yeah, I've got to walk home now because I live in Brighton.
Okay, you're now standing on the spring. It still is the official source of the Avon, but the water comes from Rustley Road.
Is this feasible or is it a pipe dream?
No, it's not a pipe dream. It's totally feasible. If the people of Christchurch really want this, it will happen. We can create something that makes our city an even greater place to live.
The residential river red zone is huge. 630 hectares, or over 4 times the size of Hagley Park. Spread throughout our eastern suburbs, it includes parts of Aranui, Avondale, Avonside, Bexley, Christchurch Central, Dallington, New Brighton, South Shore and Wainoni. 5,789 properties have been or are to be abandoned. So what shall become of this land? We're just a couple of streets back from the river in New Brighton, aren't we?
Bexley at the moment.
Are we?
Yeah, the new part of Bexley.
This is red zone?
It's red zone. Doesn't matter if the house is okay or it's totally wrecked, everybody out. So there will be no services and it will be turned into a park, pretty much. Basically restored back to what it was, hey? Natural, yeah.
Would that one there be saved?
No, the whole right side there's sunk about half a
And the
metre.
one next door's no good?
Oh, that's
Absolutely not.
Talking to the people in these areas, the common understanding is the land is destined to be a park. But to date, the government has not made a call on its future. So home sweet home.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed that the grass has been cut. Look. Anyway.
I remember coming around here on June the 13th.
Yeah, you managed to get over here about half an hour after the ground started or stopped shaking.
I think you were standing just about here. June was the third biggest aftershock since February. It was the hardest of times and we were beginning to wonder if it would ever end.
Now we got, liquefaction just like the 6.3 one, just, the water's everything's just filling up. So, we're sort of back to square one again.
So have things fallen this time that haven't fallen other times?
We've never had things fall in this house. This is the first time that we've had any damage.
At that stage, it was coming to grips with this being over, actually, to be honest, because after February and September, we didn't have a lot left.
No.
It used to be really tough. It used to be really emotional and just sad, and but now it's, I don't really feel there's much connection to it. I mean, we haven't lived in this house for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I've done some science here and really come to grips with the whole thing. So the ground used to be there, and now the ground is down here. That 50 centimeters is what we can tell from the LiDAR, these laser scans of the surface. We can tell that that's how much this area has gone down because of the liquefaction, because of that process of shaking this water-saturated sediment to the point where the pore pressures build up to such a state that basically the ground loses all strength, and that water-saturated fine-grained sand squirts up to the surface.
Wow, that's just sand.
If you stand in one corner of the yard and you look back at the house, you can actually, you're almost at roof level with your eyes. This apparently benign flat landscape is not so benign after all.
Are there many living in the street anymore?
I think there's still 2 families, an older woman living down at the end, right beside the river, and there's a family living just on the other side of the street down a little bit as well. And so, in the short term, that's an interesting question. I mean, what happens to them? Every time I come here, there's more removed. You don't need to stay in the roads now. You can just kind of walk through fields from one street to the next where homes used to be. I really, really feel for people that are still living in this part of town that don't want to be here and want to shift but can't. Look at the place. It's tough going out here. The whole makeup of the city geographically has changed.
Yeah.
When I think about this area, this is how I look at things. We know that remediation is possible, but the question is, when you're going to be left with an open field here, quite a beautiful natural environment, how much more money do you want to pump into that landscape to make it resilient? If you had a $1.1 billion deficit and people were telling you, I'll just put a park on it. Well, okay, that would be great for the city, but that's a very expensive park. So I can understand why the government would be being coy about this issue.
Yeah.
My point is that if you want to remediate this land and make it resilient, which you should definitely do, I think you need to take part of these red zones, remediate them well, make them nice places to live, comfortable places to live, with denser population structures, but not, housing blocks extending way up into the sky. Just sensible, nice community living with instant access to this wonderful resource, and try and reclaim some of the money back that way. With this amount of deficit, you can't put more money into the landscape than you're going to be able to get back out of it.
While there is debate as to how the land around certain parts of the river may be utilised, the government's plans for the central city share at least the appearance of consensus.
The Christchurch City Council ran the Share an Idea program to try and get ideas from people about what they wanted in the new city. And they really wanted, a city which was a lot closer to nature.
To find out how likely that would be, I took a punt with Sarah boss Roger Sutton.
The river in Christchurch has always been a huge part of the city, even before the Europeans arrived here. Maori saw the river as a huge source of food. We're going to try and speed it up by narrowing the river. We think we're going to get more trout in it, more whitebait, all those sort of things. It's going to be better for fish life. It doesn't just mean we have fish, but it also means we bring back the bird life. There may still be rules about who's actually allowed to fish for trout.
I think it's children as
So
well.
I'm going to have to use my special powers to change those rules so children plus males between the age of 47 and 49 are allowed to do it, something like that. beginning of this river park is where the hospital is, and the end of it is at Fitzgerald Ave. It's quite a big river park too. It's over, I think it's 3.2 kilometres long we're redeveloping.
Really? Of river?
Yeah. So, you know, if you think about going for a run at lunchtime, up one side and back down the other, that's a 6.5k run. One of the real features of the river are all these wonderful trees we've got. But we also want to add native trees in there as well, because the natives will be somewhere where we can have other native birds there. And we think native birds cruising around as you eat your lunch or ride your bike will just be great.
So a lot more of the river might look like this?
Yeah, I hope so. Well, this is nice, eh? This is lovely. Bridges. We have all these bridges. So we also, where possible, we want the walkway to go and the cycleway to get under the bridges. We want to try and bring the road up to the level of the footpath. So you really feel like you're not stopping for the road stops for you. Captain Cook stands in Victoria Square at the moment. Maybe we should move Captain Cook, and maybe we should have him looking down the river in the future. Victoria Square, Market Square, was a place that, if you went back, 100 years ago, there was a women's prison here, there was a post office. Even pre-European, Market Square was a market. It was a place where things got traded, things were bought and sold. And we really want to try and bring it back as a much more vibrant place than it's been.
What's going to happen to the town hall, Roger?
The City Council have strongly indicated they want to save the town hall. If they do save it, then we may need some extra bridges to make it easier for people to get from the town hall to other parts of the city. It's very badly damaged though. Stormwater. We want to try and capture stormwater on either side and some wetland type areas. So we've got less water running into the river in storm events, but also just makes for a more interesting area on the sides of the rivers as well. This is the area where we want to build this outrageous children's playground. We've had literally thousands of children coming up with their ideas. Things like a tower. Maybe on this tower, some of the kids have the idea that you can actually organise games of spotlight. Well, how can we have the river going through so they can build dams? And can they build themselves bridges with giant Meccano sets? So who knows what's going to happen there?
Anyone in your family had any ideas on the playground?
No, but I thought the spotlight one was especially exciting. We have a great opportunity to link up New Regent Street with the river and maybe a green space. That's really exciting. It's a real opportunity to do something really, really special here, linking architecture, park, river, and a special sort of sacred site. So this is actually a part of Christchurch that I spent a lot of time in working. I remember occasionally running across Rod Donald when he was an MP and sharing his fish and chips as he ate them on the river down here. The Edmonds Bad Rotunda, hopefully it can be restored, but that's something which maybe is going to become, a real corner piece of this part of Christchurch. Some interesting ideas for the north of where we are.
Is that the Peterborough Village?
The Peterborough Village. Once again, what we're doing is trying to build a river park which encourages other interesting central city developments that together make it a really super place to live, to work and I guess play in as well.
It's so quiet. All these abandoned houses. It's kind of eerie.
And it's such a waste of all of these buildings.
I grew up next to this river here, and I kissed girls, I caught eels, I threw sticks, I walked my dog, and I guess in hindsight, maybe it wasn't the best thing to build houses this close to it, but that's easy to say now, especially since everyone is having to leave,
Yeah, I just really hope the government don't turn around at some stage in the future and say we can remediate, we can rebuild, and then they sell off all the land. That would just be awful.
Yeah, so I guess hard to imagine they won't be tempted, but, fingers crossed that they don't.
At the time of the February the 22nd earthquake, there were 17 houses in the process of being built, and consequently none of them had an EQC cover. One such house in the Avon Loop had been the home of the late writer and activist Elsie Locke and her husband Jack. After they died, the rundown cottage was passed to daughter Alison and son-in-law Michael, who I first caught up with a year ago.
We've rebuilt essentially a cottage that's on almost exactly the same footprint as Elsie and Jack Lock's cottage. It's a wonderful green building, it's warm and comfortable, and it doesn't use much energy. So they would have been proud to live here themselves. This is Kari panelling. This match lining was in the original two-room workers' cottage. Very much a typical Peter Bevan design, still using lots of volume with skillion roofs.
You know, this guy's famous in Christchurch. Maybe his last one.
It is, yeah.
He's managed to fit a 160 square metre house onto a 360 square metre section. Pretty cool.
Unfortunately for us, because we were building at the time of the February earthquake, at the moment, we don't know what that's going to mean in terms of offers to buy us out.
What's the worst case scenario, Ali?
Totally worst case scenario is they say they're going to give us nothing.
It could be that they say to go and you say we're not going.
You'd certainly have to be prepared to tough it out and be very independent, given that it's likely that there wouldn't be any infrastructure, any sewerage, no water, perhaps no power. So yeah, it would be a big risk.
With Mike's mum Janet only a few doors down the road, it's an ideal setup for the whole family, or at least it was. Janet's house is also facing an uncertain future. 4 generations.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
Number 4.
Symmetriarchy.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. No, we don't want to leave. This is my home, Te Rangawaewae, really.
You were born here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was born, yes, right
Just
here.
over there.
It's sort of tribal land, eh?
It is. Another big reason for us wanting to move here was to support Mike's mum to stay on as long as she could in her own home.
Those are new boots.
For you, you'll have to go from here to a rest home. And that's not a very pleasant thought.
No, it isn't. Not at all pleasant thought.
The government did include the 17 households who were building during the earthquake, so we were included in the government offer. And yes, we have opted to take that offer.
What did your mum do?
She's also accepted an offer and moved into a rest home. Reluctantly, it wasn't what she wanted to do.
So sad time, eh?
Oh, very sad times, very sad times.
We endeavoured to find a way to pick the house up and shift it. We had 3 house relocation specialists come and look, but we didn't get a quote from one of them, so we can only assume that it was too difficult, too costly. The result, salvage.
Everything that's in it is new. We just couldn't bear the idea of a big digger or bulldozer just whacking it down and wasting it all.
The timber that's been used for the windows, the doors, is wonderful, wonderful old North American Oregon. Well worth keeping. Yeah.
What we've taken on here to do a partial deconstruction, I suppose we call it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, and I guess that's enough really for us. This is a really important thing. I've got to save my fantastic curtains, which I really loved.
The lock occupation here has almost made it 70 years. Wow. Elsie and Jack bought this cottage in 1944 and we're leaving in 2013.
Is this going to stay?
We're not sure. I think we might take it with us with the potential for bringing it back.
This house is every likelihood it might reappear somewhere else.
Yes. It won't.
Some reincarnation.
It won't look like this because this house is very site specific. We do the right thing for whatever site we go onto. Yeah.
Reminds me of home. I mean, do you think you can ever escape your British heritage?
Oh, no, not really. I don't think we should, but I think we should really, make sure we combine it, a happy medium with, our Māori heritage and stuff, but I don't think we should ever leave it behind. Right, what's going to become of the Otākaro?
It's hard to tell, Lyndon. There's a lot of ideas and options being discussed and thrown around. I'd like to see an environmental push for the river because it did get so badly polluted after the quake, and it'd be nice to see it getting taken care of.
It'd be nice to just be able to jump in here and now I can get my head under the water, maybe catch a fish, you know, again.
It's a little idealistic, don't you think?
Oh, I think I'd like a lake in the centre of the city, like Central Park.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be a long day.
OK, we should start by cleaning it up.
How the River Red Zone will be used in the future is anyone's guess, but there is certainly no shortage of ideas, one of the most popular being reforestation.
I work in the Crown Research Institute called Sutton, and their major thrust in scientific area is prosperity through trees.
What was here before the Europeans came? Was there a forest?
There was a forest. It was based around Kānuka was one of the major trees. Totara is the tree for our area. And around these river margins was kahikatea, our tallest trees.
So how about a kahikatea forest?
I think a kahikatea forest would be good along the river margins and in areas where the soil is perfect for that tree.
It's time to have ideas, isn't it?
I think the community engagement process should be, we listen to these communities and what they say, and then we act upon them. And I think people are wanting something to happen soon.
For the Canterbury Rowing Club to build a large lake fed by the Avon would revolutionise the city.
This is Kerrs Reach, and it's been the home of rowing since 1950. Kerrs Reach was originally a drainage solution. It was dug across the loop of the river to speed the flow up. It wasn't built as a rowing course.
Was that right?
Yeah. I believe that a lake could be incorporated into the drainage of Christchurch, and that lake could take not only rowing but kayaking, and also serve as something that cycling, triathlon, marathon runners could all run around. Put a piece of water near a city and people gravitate to it. You've only got to look at Ashburton to see the effect that Lake Hood has had on that community. And
We've got to be better than them, though, don't we? We've got to do better than Ashburton.
We shouldn't be letting them show us up. We've got the opportunity. I believe it's a no-brainer. Let's move on a decent flat waters facility now. The side of the city does need to be lifted up. Simplistically, if you need fill, well, you do get it out of a hole. What we're really asking is the hole be 2.5 kilometres long and 200 metres wide.
And there's no stopping the passionate locals either, once you get them started.
I mean, I've got all sorts of ideas about it. So you clear this, you have pockets of really well remediated land, and then you've got a park around. It's got great bike paths, it's got nice little access routes and things like that. It's got orchards, it's got bringing in some more agriculture. It's got a children's farm.
It'd be a lovely place to live, eh? Forestry.
Yeah, and it's spotted with earthquake art. So our beautiful twisted bridge that we used to take great pride in Avonside, it was like our Tower of Pisa. Bring that back and put that somewhere and put a garden around it. We love gardens here. All these houses, all this stuff that's getting carted off, I'd like to see it turned into a nice big hill. I don't know about that environmentally. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but to have a nice large hill here where you could look around, that'd be quite cool. A lot of it's quite flat here. And then the other thing about all that is, you know, when we think about future tsunami hazard for eastern parts of Christchurch, having some big hills around is a good thing, actually. The very things that we've had to tear down could be then used to give a little bit back to us.
Thanks, New Zealand On Air.